Hello, this is Bill uh, reporting in on another edition of Billboard Comics, Growing Up Comics. It's a reminiscence of my time as a young man, young kid, young boy collecting comic books. Um, Topic for today is comics were everywhere. Now, of course, that's hyperbole. Comic books were not technically everywhere. Everywhere? Everywhere. Um, you couldn't go to like get a tune-up and come and walk out with like a whole bunch of Howard the Duck back issues. You wouldn't go to your dentist and say, "Oh, you have a cavity. Come see me next week." By the way, the next issue of Power Man Iron Fist is coming out then, so you can pick that up at the same time. So they weren't everywhere, but they're in a whole heck of a lot more places than they are right now. Um, that's what I want to go into a little bit now. Uh, some of the places that you can find them. Let me start off with the supermarket. Um, Today's supermarkets are now basically giant super centers like Walmart and Target, and they have all kinds of groceries where you get places you get underwear and motor oil and grapes all in the same place if you wanted to. A lot of them have decided to go by the wayside when it comes to magazines and comic books. They don't really have them, except for usually they're um, consigned to the front of the store by the register um, on the racks as you go in there, kind of like an impulse buy. Um, and if you find any comic books there, it's probably the little digest-sized Archies or other publishers. Um, Back in my day, you're going to hear that a lot. Um, Usually, a whole like quarter to a third of a aisle was taken up by a big two-tier cascading pressboard magazine rack. You would have pretty much every magazine under creation, anything you wanted possible. And in the bottom row, where it's easy for the kiddies to get to, you had comic books. I have a very fond memory about this because basically what happened was I grew up in a time before like child abductions were popular, or people had parents had to worry about their kids being snatched up when they're not looking. Uh, a less paranoid time, a more trusting time. So my parents would basically essentially leave me there. I'd sit down on the floor in front of the thing and just read comic books until my parents were done shopping. Um, you know, and nobody bothered me. Nobody really nobody in the store bothered me. None of the other shoppers bothered me. I was blissfully unaware of anything. I'd go there and read comic books. If I found one that I particularly liked, I went and wanted to read again. I'd take it and if I asked my parents to get it for me. Um, yeah, and I used to spend hours just getting that stuff like this, and that's where I found like, you know, usually whenever I went there, I kind of like gravitated to the DC Best of DC digests or DG Blue Ribbon digests. They're basically reprints of popular books from the past. They usually have a theme like Superman or Batman or Justice Society. Sometimes they have the best of the year, but I could sit there and read like 6 or 7 different stories all in one sitting with all different characters and not, you know, just enjoy myself. And if it's like the stories were good, like I said, I asked my parents to do that. I remember did of the Superman one. If I find it online, I'll try to put it up here. Um, it, it was always fun, and it seems like pretty much every store that had magazines had comic books like this. I remember I was in the IGA in Exeter, Pennsylvania, and that's where I got my first issue of the first series of the official handbook to the Marvel Universe. In case you don't know about this, it is basically a encyclopedia to all the Marvel characters, and it was a like kind of like a bare bones thing. But like I was just starting collecting then. I was just you know trying like I think I was. Let me see here. I was probably that's probably like just when I got the first comic book that I wanted to start as a collector. which was Avengers 227. It came out the same month, October of 1982. I picked up the uh, official handbook at this grocery store because I'm like, oh wow, this looks like it tells you all about the Marvel characters. Fell in love with it. Found out about all the amazing characters that Marvel could happen, like all there who some are who are in comic books that are on the newsstands at the time, some that haven't appeared in comic books for years or months. Um, but I was able to like, oh yeah, that guy in Daredevil, that's Bullseye. I remember reading about him in the official handbook. Um, so that kind of helped me like get deeper into the collecting, comic book collecting. I seem to recall actually getting a copy of Moon Knight number 36 at the same time. I don't think it's possible because Moon Knight at the month that the thing came out was Moon Knight 27 was published, and I was able to pick up the uh, first issue of the Marvel Handbook and continue next month with the second one and so on and so forth. So I picked up right when it started, so it wasn't like hanging around in the supermarket until it got picked up. Um, but so like maybe my memory's playing tricks on me, but I do remember where I got that place that there. Second is drugstores. Um, right now, you have a whole bunch of corporate drugstores. It's basically um, Walgreens, CVS, sometimes Rite Aid, sometimes some other one that you might not know of. Back in my day, again, um, there's a lot of more mom and pop like drugstores around. You didn't have the big chains as much as you do today. They started coming in like towards the mid to late '80s where I lived, and they kind of like started to squeeze out the mom and pop operations. Um, uh, these were another fine place to have them. These are where you find like the comic books in the spinner racks, and there's like several like in my area growing up in northeastern Pennsylvania, a number of different um, drugstores. They had different features when it came to comic books. There was a Stapinski's drugstore in the West Side Mall in Evansville, which had a classic spinner rack. But since there's a lot of foot traffic there, all the comic books in there were in horrible condition. Um, from a very early age, my father kind of like drilled through the thing about me about keeping your comic books in good shape because they might be viable later on, which I'm grateful because, you know, I grew up at a time when like the first appearance of Deadpool and the first appearance of Venom came out on the newsstands, so I have a pretty good copy of those for me. So when I retire, I could, you know, buy more beer or whatever. Um, but I would only go to Stapinski's as a last resort. They usually had like a lot of the back issues in there. They have like a big selection, but everything looked like a candy cane. It's just basically because like people would like flip through it, and you know after like 300 people flip through it, it starts to get a little bent. But only but that's okay because like about a mile away from it was one called Jacobson's Pharmacy, I believe. It was on I believe Pierce Street in Kingston, like I think on the corner of Pierce and Rudder. If I'm not mistaken, I probably am. But um, basically, this is one of the few things where they actually respected the cover date. Um, a little sidebar on cover dates here, in case you don't know. Comic books are published usually like say in May. They'll come out in May, but the date on the cover will be August or June. This is a long-standing practice because it's a kind of like a trick by the comic book companies to try to keep their comic books on the shelves longer. Um, they figure like, okay, well, we put the date of August on there, that'll be the expiration date, because back in the day, like the secondary market, like drugstores, supermarkets, whatever, after a certain amount of time, we'd send the comic books back and get credit for like whatever they didn't sell. Um, so they would try to put it a couple months ahead to try to game the system so they could keep it on the shelves more to try to get more money from them. However, a lot of the retail outlets would like basically replace like the August issue of Action Comics in June when the September issue came in, and just send that back, and the ploy didn't work. People didn't really honor or respect that 3 month window. Jacobson's did, and that was really great for me as a young collector because if I missed one, because like I was trying to patch together stuff from like various sources, various locations, various uh, places where they sold it, and sometimes you miss one. Sometimes a newsstand or a store would only have like one copy of, um, say, um, like Power Man and Iron Fist number 101, and if you need that for your collection, and you missed it, and back before I found out about comic book stores and back issues, it was gone forever. You like had to tell you that like mail order or something like that, or try to track it out some other ways. However, you go to Jacobson's, and usually like I try to set my money before I go there, you could find like 3 months of comic books there. So if something came out within the last 3 months, odds are to have it. He'd have like the entire bottom structure of the thing filled with comic books, and it was like if you see the bookshelves, they're free floating, so they didn't really get that damaged. So you could actually find pretty good copies of that there. I used to love going there. That was like one of my favorite places to buy comic books there because I get 2 or 3 issues of a comic book run that I need that I've missed, um, all in one fell swoop, so I didn't have to worry about that. And then there's like comic books like I remember Sheen's drugstore in like I think it was in Parsons or Plains, Pennsylvania. Um, they're like weird because like it was a smattering of comic books, and I mean that in the biblical sense of smattering. I don't know what that thing means, but like it's just like you have like one Archie, one Marvel 2-in-1, one Batman, and the next month you have like maybe one Avengers, one Justice League, one Archie. It didn't seem to have any sense of like what continuity was going there. Like they didn't get the same comic books every month, I think, and just like so it's like kind of weird to go there to find that. But yeah, drugstores were a really good place to uh, find stuff like that. Next up is department stores. Department stores, uh, back in the day, were kind of like basically like what Walmart is today. It's basically a place where you can buy sundry goods for various amounts of prices. Um, like you know, they would basically some of them are still around. Kmart, I think, is now a long forgotten memory. McCrory's is a long forgotten memory. But there are places like Macy's and other stuff like this. There are higher end stuff like that. I was talking about like more the mid tier, like the McCrory's and the Five and Dimers, like the Kmart's. They would often have comic books in their um, setup. They would have like comic books like in their um, store. I remember Kmart used to like have that. Most often than not, they would have like McCoy's. I remember had a really good spinner rack of comic books, and like like some also in like the magazine racks. I remember the comic book that made me want to be a collector, Avengers 227. I found them at McCrory's. I think the McCrory's in the Wyoming Valley Mall, and I remember like holding them in my hands and figuring out and saying, I want to start getting every issue of this series from now on, and maybe from other series too. And I'll talk about that later when I talk about that in this series. Um, but I remember Kmart also was big in having those comic book 3 packs. Back when I was a kid, you have like a popular form of selling comic books is um, they would have 3 packs, 3 comic book packs, um, like of 3 different issues. It could be Thor, Captain America, and like Iron Man, or whatever. And you'd be able to see only 2 of them because like they'd be facing like it on the other side of the plastic bag. You could see one book this way and one book the other way. Um, and if you were good and kind of like were careful, you could try to move the comic book over to see at least what title or what series the third one was. Like you would be able to see the cover, like who was fighting who or whatever, how good the cover was. You'd be able to see like, oh god, oh man, I got a Thor. I hate Thor. Um, but they're great because you get like three comic books all in one shot, and um, this is like where I'm going to have another video about like where I came to love the Avengers. I got a 3 pack in Kmart one time, which had Avengers 156, 157, and 180. I don't know why there's a jump between the 157 and 80. It's basically comic books that have been like sort of remaindered, so they're like kind of been around there. And you get it for like say a couple cents cheaper than you would if you bought all three on the newsstand when they came out. Not a big discount by any shaded imagination, but a little bit. And um, I used to love those, and that's you usually find those in department stores um, more than anyplace else. Um, Fourth will be bookstores. Bookstores is like again like another dying industry. Now I think the only bookstore we have are either um, Barnes and Noble or a whole bunch of mom and pop stores, which more power to them. I support them all that. Um, Usually, typically, like they might have like Barnes and Noble has a large selection of magazines. You can get any magazine you want in there, but they don't usually carry comic books except for like maybe digests or stuff like this or rare occasion stuff like this. You could go to the graphic novel section and get a whole bunch of graphic novel, like the book collections. But back in the day, back when there's a whole bunch of competition, like in Walden Books and Borders and like all those stuff, a lot of them have like spinner racks where you get like comic books, but they have better spinner racks than you have like say in the Stupinski drugstore where you have a solid piece of plexiglass and you could like do it that way. It's like more conducive to having good condition books. Sometimes you find it in like when they're cascading bookshelves, like they had in the supermarkets. I'm reading a bunch of comic books. Like remember Hard to Find New Mutants. I think maybe number 57. I found this way. Um, but yeah, it was like, but it was, even then it's kind of sporadic. What you get there and what you wouldn't get there. And sometimes they have like like magazines, like Wizard and stuff put in there with the comic books, and like I admired Wizard at the time. I don't have any qualms with it. I'm not gonna like yell about it or whatever. You have your own opinion about it. Good. But my opinion is that that's a space taken up that should be going to a comic book instead of a magazine about comic books. But I digress. Um, but yeah, that's like another fun place to buy comic books. Finally, I like to talk about convenience stores. Convenience stores and also like kind of like uh, all kinds of stuff like this, like little mom and pop stores, little like bodegas and stuff like that. Would be another place to find like comic books. As I said in the original first one of this, um, or the first one I published on this, I don't know what order you're watching it again. Um, uh, we used to have like a general store kind of thing up at the front. It was kind of like what the Monday like 7-Elevens are, but it wasn't a 7-Eleven. It was like I think privately owned by somebody who lived in the trailer park I lived in. And in there they had like all your you go get bread, you get milk, you get eggs, and like candy. They had toys, not toys, but they had like baseball cards and stuff like this, and all kinds of like gum and whatnot. But they also had like a section with comic books. You could just go in there and buy comic books. Um, yeah, that's not convenient for me, but it was also kind of like again another sporadic thing. Like it seemed to be filled on the whim of whoever owned the convenience store, or the mom and pop store, or the I'm trying to think of another name for it. I had it and I lost it, and they're gonna get it back again. But it was like one of the smaller, like kind of like for lack of better convenience stores, we could get like a comic book every so often. Um, Having all these together, it would be like it makes the hunt for the comic books a lot easier back then. Like I said, as I mentioned before, a lot of different challenges. Like if you're trying to find a comic book that might be a little bit more obscure, you know, you might have to shop around to several of these locations. But at least you had several locations to shop around in. Um, Almost everyone carried like the big ones, Spider-Man and Superman. And you probably find them anywhere you went to. Like Marvel, I actually get Marvel team ups pretty much everywhere I went until I got a actual subscription to it. Um, But now it's like kind of like like it's kind of like hunting. Like back then, hunting lands were everywhere, but you'd have to like watch out. You couldn't like hunt for like a timber wolf in a swamp, or you couldn't hunt for an alligator on a icy mountainside. So you'd have to like find a place where comic books, like which your prey would be hanging out at, to go get it. Um, Now the hunting lands are basically very rare. At least if you want to go buy it and take it home with you in the same day. Um, like uh, comic book shops have been around, and like most communities have at least one. Um, some don't have any, and that sucks for them. But just finding them like on the wild, that's not there. Like Ollie's has comic books every so often, but they're like kind of like all like back like remainder stock or overstock or something that somebody you know are trying to package and bundle and get rid of. Um, the dollar store, I think, and Five Below had special edition comic books, um, but only a limited number and limited series. So it's that's one thing I miss about the world of collecting, like being able to just wherever you're going shopping for food, and you could find like a bunch of comic books that you might need. Um, you know, Going grocery clothes shopping and be able to find like that. Um, so that's one thing that I think that the kids these days do not have as well as I did back in the day. But if you have any like remembrances about like going to a department store or a supermarket and getting comic books you'd like to share with us, please put it in the comments. If you liked this little trip down memory lane, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because I will be doing a whole bunch of these. And you know, you know, like it. That would help. I don't know if I said like already, but if I did, I'll say it again because it's important to like it if you would like to. But thank you for spending some time with me. I appreciate this. I hope you found this interesting at least, and keep on collecting.